So welcome to topic 10, and it's about how to manage products, but essentially really what we're talking about is we're talking about competitive advantage. And we're going to talk a lot about competitive advantage as we go forward as well. And we're going to see a technique, and it's part of one of the uh, um, participation activities that you're going to do. It's called VRIO, and that's all about having sustainable competitive advantage. So we'll get into that, and I'm hoping when you leave this topic, you'll really get an understanding of the tools and the effort to help from a management principles point of view to create competitive advantage. So that's where we're going with this one. But before we get started, though, does anyone have any questions at all? You could unmute and ask a question. Sounds like we're ready to get started. Okay, I don't see any hands up, so we'll get going. Okay, so I have two small videos, and I've already set it up so that I'm sharing the sound, so that shouldn't be a problem. And again, sometimes my mic goes to mute. I don't know why, but I'd really appreciate it if you as soon as you don't hear me or you don't see something on this screen. This is where I'm looking at my screens, and I'm not sharing. Please unmute and let me know, or go from there. Okay, thanks. Okay, so this is just an information piece. This one slide, it's about generative AI fundamentals. It's a free newsletter, so that there's some free training and it's available to you. It's not related to the course or anything, but I thought it'd be good to give you a sense of what's out there. All right, so this week it's a little less in terms of deliverables. So in topic 10, there's no Pearson surveys to complete, and there's no additional eText PowerPoint presentations from Robbins to review. So it's essentially the materials that are here. And again, we're pushing towards test number 3 now, for 9, 10, 11, and 12 topics. And again, there's that same approach to studying that I've shown before, and I'll be showing you that probably in the next topic presentation slides. Essentially the same kind of approach where the actual commentary PowerPoint presentations are the most important part, and to look for the golden keys and the highlighting and the bolding, and then sometimes I emphasize what's really important. You'll see that again in this presentation. Okay, so tomorrow your number 3 assignment is due. So just to let you know about that. And then now I'm just going to talk about the group exercises, for participation topics 10A and 10B. And what you're going to be asked to do is create an ideal client, one ideal client for Tim Hortons, because Tim Hortons has several ideal clients. And ideal clients, the definition could be avatar, purchasing persona. There's different names, and I'll show you that in the slides. But I'm giving you an example of what I've done with a particular Art Barn client, where we created Amy Artsy. Basically it was a small local country museum, and I'm going to give you a sense of how that comes together. And what I'm asking you to do is that look at one key marketing segment which reflects the ideal client, and I'm going to talk a lot more about ideal clients and what that's all about for Tim Hortons. And I want you to use the template that I'm providing with this link is a PowerPoint presentation about ideal clients, and the template itself is slide 5 and slide 6, and I'd like you to take that template and then construct your ideal client for Tim Hortons on those PowerPoint slides. Okay, and you only have to submit the 2 slides of the PowerPoint. So that's all I'm looking for. And one thing though is that to help you out, I've given you some material about how to identify an ideal customer parameter, and go to that link, but don't submit that. All I'm looking for are the 2 slides for the submission. But there's a whole series of questions that you can answer that will really help you kind of create this ideal client. that's where that is. So if you go to that PowerPoint slide, that's this link right here, on slide 5 and slide 6, you can see that I created the ideal client as Amy Artsy, provided a description and filled out the various categories of attributes, for that particular ideal customer. So I want you to do the same thing, for this, and so that's basically what it looks like. This is slide 5 and slide 6. So you're gonna input slide 1 and slide 2 for your input. Now I'd like you to kind of listen to this piece, because I'll just tell you a little story. Is that my daughter has a physio practice in Calgary, and I told her that she really should think about creating an ideal client profile, for her business. And she said, "Yeah, Dad, I know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah." So I did it for her, but I used ChatGPT. And I'll tell you, it took me like 10 minutes. This particular ideal client that we created, I created with the people at the North Simcoe Art Barn, or whatever it's called. Yeah. And we spent half a day going through all this material, and then I finally formulated a piece. And whereas I just took the main information, from my daughter's physio and their website, and within 5 minutes I had an ideal customer profile. So I want to play this for you, and so that you can really get a sense of what this is all about. And please let me know if you're hearing the sound or if you're not hearing the sound. All right. All right. So I'm just going to go to this link.
What if there was a way to generate a detailed buyer persona for a product or service you want to sell? What if you could do that for any market and for any type of business?
Okay, so can you hear that? Can you give me some thumbs up that you're hearing it? Okay, great, thanks.
What if you could do that in any language? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, keep watching, my friends, because I have a surprise for you. What is up, everyone? Ronnie here. Welcome back to the channel. This is the best place for you to learn about Canva, for you to learn about AI and all of these AI generative tools that will help you supercharge your business or any project you might be working on. Today, I have something else that will blow your mind. I've been working all day on this, and I really needed to press that record button to share it with you. So without further ado, I want to show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna stop talking and I'm just going to show it to you. All right, are you ready for this? Let's jump into ChatGPT. All right, guys, it starts right here with this box that says Buyer Persona Legend by Ron GPT.
Okay, just to let you know now, buyer persona is ideal customer. Sometimes they call it, a marketing purchaser. Sometimes they call it an avatar, right? So there's different names, all mean the same thing.
I love Monday.com.
What's Monday.com?
You don't know Monday.com? This is Monday.com. It's a
So what this is a prompt template that I have created. It took me all day to make this the perfect prompt, and I tested and tested and tested it again. So now it is perfect. Now it is working. And the only thing you need to get started and to generate that detailed buyer persona that I promised is simply to enter this information right here. What does your business sell? Dash, where are your clients? So I'm going to post my first prompt right here. I'm selling vegan ice cream in Barcelona. Okay, I'm going to click the little button right here, and ChatGPT is going to start generating different tables in which I will have some detailed information about my buyer persona. Okay, you see the name, age, occupation, annual income, marital status, family situation, location, even gives me the name of the neighborhood in Barcelona. Then I have a little user description. Lucia is a single 29-year-old yoga instructor living in Gracia, Barcelona. She is a health conscious and has a soft spot for plant-based food. She values quality, authenticity, and sustainability. Then I have another table with the psychographics. And then I have the last table, table number 4 right here, with her shopping behaviors. Her budget per ice cream, shopping frequency, preferred channel, local health food, farmers market, online behavior. She researches the product and brand. She reads reviews. The search term that she uses: organic, fair trade, vegan, sustainable. Preferred brands, brand with eco-friendly packaging and ethical practices. The triggers, the stuff that make her buy the products: high quality ingredients, unique flavors, or eco-friendly packaging. And some barriers she might have, like limited availability or the high prices. So all of that information I was able to generate with the help of my friend ChatGPT here by simply prompting a product that I sell and a location, a market. So that is pretty amazing in my opinion, but I don't know. What do you say? You want to see another one? All right, let's try this again. So again.
Okay, so I'm not going to play this whole video, but I just wanted to give you the feel. So, you know, when you, I think it'd be a great idea if your team goes through this video and gets more of a perspective. And again, you know, it mentioned, you know, what channels this ideal customer is at. And we're going to talk about the customer journey later on in this presentation as well. So I'll give you a sense of, you know, how you need to look at it from a multi-channel approach, right? And I'll talk about access and talk about the marketing mix at some point in time, you know, where we used to call in the marketing mix just place. And now place is more than just one spot, like a bricks and mortar location to go to. It's multi-channels, and it really defines access. All right, how is your ideal customer or your avatar or your buying persona accessing, you know, your organization to be able to buy your offering? All right, that's what that's all about. All right, so that's all I'm going to show you on that to give you a sense of what's going on, but it's there. You can click on that link, and then we're going to go back to the current slide. Okay. So any questions about that for starters? You could unmute and ask me anything. Okay. We're all good? Okay. Right. Okay. So I'll just keep going. All right. So here's the ideal customer that we created. You know, I did with the client with what they call the art barn. It was like a country museum, and featured different arts and crafts and artisan works, you know, in a particular county, right? And so that we named it. You know, Amy Artsy was kind of, you know, in line with what the art barn, you know, wants to look at. And then we provided a description of Amy Artsy, and then we filled out these areas of attributes. You know, what her background was, you know, where did she fit in the demographics, and then how did we identify Amy Artsy, what they're all about, what her goals were. And, you know, you want to tie in or resonate with your ideal customer goals, right? And then, you know, I'm going to talk to you as well about a value proposition. Now, there's no test questions around the value proposition, but to really understand the ideal customer, you really need to understand your value proposition to be able to target that customer. And in that value proposition, we're going to talk about Alexander Osterwalder, who actually created this value proposition canvas. And he talks about the gains and pains of an ideal customer, or of a customer, period. And you take a look at, you know, what kind of gains are you going to create for your particular avatar, or your particular ideal customer? What kind of pains are they experiencing, so that you're going to deal with pain relievers in your offering to make sure, in your value proposition, to make sure that they're saying, oh, you know, so I'll give you an example. So let's say that, you know, at your local coffee shop, you know, the coffee's always cold. Well, you know, a new coffee shop coming in, knowing that that's a pain, will be promoting, saying this coffee is always fresh and it's always hot. All right, that kind of thing. So that's how you address a pain reliever for a pain point. And then what are Amy Artsy's core values? And then how do you show on your branding that you align with those values? What are her psychographics in terms of, what are her predispositions, what are her routines and whatever, her personality, and then what motivates Amy Arcee to purchase, and then what kind of relationships does she want to create with your organization? And again, that coincide with the core values, and it coincides in how you develop that value proposition to be able to make it resonate with that ideal customer. So that's what we're looking for. So this is the value proposition canvas standard that Alex Osterwalder. It's all over the internet. You can find, a template like this that you can fill out. But here's where we, created the value proposition for Amy Arcee, basically. And we looked at, what are her gains? What are her pains? And then, what does she do in terms of how does she find us, and we call it customer jobs, but the steps that they go through to actually go through the sales process in terms of awareness, all the way to buying, all the way to, post purchase, and what they do, on the back end of staying connected, right? So what you do then is you take a look at that, at the customer, and then create the gain creators and create the pain relievers, and then list the products and services that apply to that particular ideal customer. Okay, so this is basically just to help you. It's not part of a test or anything, but it'll really give you a good sense of how to develop a better ideal customer profile. Okay, so that's the first participation activity. It's a group activity. Any questions about that? You can unmute and ask me a question if you like. Okay, no question about that. So, I'm going to tell you more about that as we go along in the webinar here. Now we're going to talk about participation topic 10B, and again, this is in the spirit of, we said, how to manage products, but really how to create a sustainable, differential advantage. Or sustainable competitive advantage as well. All right. And what you're going to have to do then is that, again, I've shown you a link to the template, and you're going to go through this VRIO exercise, and we're going to go through this in the slides that are following this, so you don't have to know all of that right now. But what's key about this is that I want you to put 3 different examples down here to go through that process. And one example has to be, one specific human capital example, whatever that is, that you're going to look at, and it's got to be specific to Tim Hortons, all right? And then one specific, organizational capital factor, and then one specific physical capital factor, and then go through answering the questions, for each one of those examples to be able to get a sense of, can you have a sustainable competitive advantage, right? And I'm going to explain this to you as we go through this. You're going to see the future slides as we go through, and by the time we get to the end of the webinar, you'll be able to get a sense of, okay, this is how I need to fill out this template. But please use the templates. And when we talk about the firm's resources, we're talking about Tim Hortons. So use AI to be able to source all that information to be able to do a really robust analysis of what this VRIO is all about. And oh, by the way, there is a VRIO exercise as a question in assignment number 4, in the Amazon team project. All right, just a little bit more, so assignment number 4, speaking of that, it's due April the 7th. You can go to Blackboard and hit on this link to get to it. I recommended that your team should be looking at these questions already and getting a sense of which ones that you're going to answer, so that when these participation activities come up, you'll know which ones to really focus on to be able to create the information and work the template. So that's all available to you. So you're not rushing through this this assignment at the end of the term, okay? The next one is to do a team member review. How did you do, as a team? And again, it's going to pull in a lot of the management principles, the theorists and the theories of how you viewed what went on. And so that it would behoove you to go through all the two main things that I put out in terms of theorists and the links to the tools and all those pieces, and that's all described in the instructions for assignment number 5, and it's worth a fair amount of marks as well. Okay, so really competitive advantage is the underlying theme for this topic 10, in terms of how to manage products. So what you're going to see then when how you manage products, well, you need high skilled workers. You need to gain, some exclusive access to some technologies to produce that offering. You need to look at cost leadership. You need to look at how you're going to differentiate that product, how it's going to be unique in the marketplace, so that you can bring in, more market share. And understand how to manage the brand image, as you're offering that product or service. And then, how do you, in some cases, gain exclusive proprietary technologies, or maybe you do a patent, on that offering. All right, so I'd like you to kind of just listen to this. It's only about 7 minutes, but it's really kind of sets the tone for this particular topic itself.
Hello everyone, welcome to Business School 101. Competitive advantage is a key concept in strategic management that refers to the ability of a company to outperform its competitors in the marketplace. It is essentially what sets a company apart from its competitors and allows it to gain a foothold in the market. Generally, there are 3 main types of competitive advantages: cost advantage, differentiation advantage, and network advantage. Let's discuss them individually. Section 1. Cost advantage. A company that has a cost advantage is able to produce goods or services at a lower cost than its competitors. This can be accomplished through economies of scale, better supply chain management, or more efficient production processes. By keeping costs low, a company can offer lower prices to customers, which can give it an edge in the marketplace. Here are 2 real-world examples. First, Walmart. Walmart is known for its cost advantage, which it achieves through efficient supply chain management, bulk purchasing, and cost-saving initiatives. By keeping costs low, Walmart is able to offer lower prices to customers than its competitors, which attracts price-sensitive shoppers. Second, Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines has a cost advantage in the airline industry, which it achieves through a focus on operational efficiency and low overhead costs. By keeping costs low, Southwest is able to offer affordable fares to customers, which has made it a popular choice for budget-conscious travelers. Section 2. Differentiation advantage. A company that has a differentiation advantage is able to offer products or services that are unique in some way, and that customers perceive as being of higher value than those of its competitors. This can be accomplished through superior quality, innovative features, better customer service, or a strong brand image. By offering something that its competitors do not, a company can attract customers who are willing to pay a premium price for its products or services. Here we also provide 2 real-world examples. First, Apple. Apple has achieved a differentiation advantage by creating products that are sleek, innovative, and of high quality. Apple's products, such as the iPhone and MacBook, offer unique features and design elements that set them apart from competitors. Second, Ferrari. Ferrari has achieved a differentiation advantage by creating high-performance sports cars that offer unique design elements and cutting-edge technology. Ferrari's cars are associated with luxury, speed, and exclusivity, which appeal to a specific segment of consumers who are willing to pay a premium price for these features. Section 3. Network advantage. A company that has a network advantage is able to leverage its connections with other companies, customers, or stakeholders to gain an advantage over its competitors. This can be accomplished through strategic alliances, joint ventures, or partnerships that allow the company to access new markets, technologies, or resources. Here are two examples. First, Alibaba. Alibaba has achieved network advantage by building strategic partnerships and alliances with other companies in the e-commerce industry. Alibaba's partnerships have allowed it to access new markets and technologies, as well as expand its customer base. By leveraging its network, Alibaba has been able to achieve a dominant position in the Chinese e-commerce market. Second, MasterCard. MasterCard has achieved network advantage through its extensive network of partnerships and alliances with banks, merchants, and other stakeholders in the payment industry. By working closely with its partners, MasterCard has been able to expand its reach and offer innovative payment solutions to customers around the world. Section 4. Importance. Competitive advantages are critical for a number of reasons. First, increased profitability. A company that has a competitive advantage is able to offer products or services at a lower cost or higher value than its competitors. This can lead to increased sales and market share, which can translate into higher profits. Second, sustainable growth. A company that has a competitive advantage is better equipped to sustain its growth over time. By creating a unique position in the market, a company can build a loyal customer base that is less likely to be swayed by competitors. Third, higher market share. A company with a competitive advantage is more likely to capture a larger share of the market. This can lead to increased brand recognition and a stronger position in the industry. Fourth, better bargaining power. A company with a competitive advantage is in a stronger position to negotiate with suppliers, distributors, and other stakeholders. This can lead to better pricing and terms, which can further enhance the company's competitive position. Section 5. Strategies. There are several ways that a company can gain a competitive advantage. Number 1. Innovation. Companies that are able to innovate and develop new products or services that meet customer needs in unique and better ways can gain a competitive advantage. Innovation can take many forms, from developing new technologies to improving processes to creating new business models. Number 2. Cost leadership. Companies that are able to produce goods or services at a lower cost than their competitors can gain a cost advantage, which can be passed on to customers in the form of lower prices. Number 3. Differentiation. Companies that are able to differentiate themselves from their competitors through unique features, superior quality, or strong branding can attract customers who are willing to pay a premium price for their products or services. Number 4. Customer service. Companies that are able to provide exceptional customer service can gain a competitive advantage by building strong relationships with customers and creating loyalty. Number 5. Branding and reputation. Companies that are able to build a strong brand and reputation can gain a competitive advantage by creating trust and recognition among customers. Section 6. Nike's example. In the real business world, industry leaders normally have more than one type of competitive advantage to keep them apart from their competitors. Let's use Nike as an example. As we know, Nike has established itself as a leading brand in the sports apparel industry by focusing on product differentiation and branding. Nike's products are designed with advanced technology and innovative features that appeal to athletes and fitness enthusiasts. By offering products that are unique and of high quality, Nike is able to charge a premium price and maintain its market position. In addition to product differentiation, Nike has also created a strong brand image through marketing and sponsorship deals with high-profile athletes and sports teams. Nike's swoosh logo is recognized around the world and is associated with high performance and quality. By leveraging these competitive advantages, Nike has been able to establish a strong position in the sports apparel industry and achieve long-term success. All right, that's all for today's topic. If you have any questions regarding
Okay, any questions about that at all? You could unmute and ask a question. And again, if you have any questions that you want to send me by email, I'd be happy to answer as well. Okay, how are we doing so far? Can I see some thumbs up? We're doing okay? Okay, good, thank you. All right. Okay, so again, we talked about competitive advantage. That's the underlying theme for this, how to manage products. It's so what does that mean then? It translates into competitive strategy. And if you take a look at the concepts that were introduced here, we've talked about Michael Porter and his generic strategies, cost leadership and differentiation. So it's all coming together kind of thing. But what you need to understand, again, with managing your products, is you start, with your unique value proposition. And I showed you that, that value proposition canvas that is created by Alexander. And the thing is that when assessing the internal resources, we talked about McKinsey 7S, and this is a platform or a framework that you could use to take a look at what's, how to improve your situation to be able to have the right organizational capacity and capability to manage that value proposition. And then leveraging innovation and creativity. We're going to look at, design thinking later on in this particular webinar as well, because this is all part of it. You got to innovate, continually, really to stay ahead of the curve to be able to, command, this sustainable competitive advantage. How do you analyze the market? Well, we talked about Pastel last time around, and so that we've looked at this technique. Conducting a competitive analysis, well, we talked about Porter's 5 forces analysis, and then emphasizing the customer experience, something we haven't talked about and it's not part of the curriculum, but voice of the customer. And I could tell you that it's a whole technology in terms of what voice of the customer means. It got its start in total quality management, and I've used that as a program leader when we did the overall business process improvement for service delivery at TELUS, and it's very, very powerful. So something that you could keep in mind. Nothing to do with the actual test number 3, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, so the thing is that we talked about managing products. We went to competitive advantage, and then we said, all right, now we're looking at the strategic advantage of what's going on, and now we need to connect the strategic plan to the marketing plan. That's what this is all about. So, if you take a look at the strategic plan, Inkling starts from the top level and gets cascaded down, and wanted you to get a sense of how does this all come together? Well, corporations start with a strategic plan, and then what they do is from that strategic plan, they will create an annual business plan. And then as an offshoot of that, we're cascading down, the marketing faction of the organization will create an annual marketing plan. And sometimes the annual marketing plan is integrated with the annual communications plan. Sometimes, in larger organizations, it's apart, it's in 2 sections. But in that communications plan are different campaigns. And the whole idea around a marketing plan is that your campaigns have to be consistent. The messages that you send out have to, be parallel, because you may have one campaign on a particular product that could maybe send different signals for a second campaign that you're with another product. So when you're making the same messages, then people get a sense of, okay, this is how they do business, and this is how I understand how they're giving me, this value proposition and why this value is important to me as an ideal customer, right? And the thing is that as we're working through, ever since COVID, the digital marketing aspect of marketing now has really kind of flourished and is really a big part of the overall marketing approach now for organizations. So that's something that you need to really understand, and this is where AI is going to play a big portion, especially when it comes to customer relations management. And also, I'm going to tie this back into the customer journey in the last few slides, right? So that's where that's going. Okay, so just look at, the strategic plan versus the business plan versus the marketing plan. You can see that, it looks at the overall sense of where the organization is going to do. It does the overall SWOT analysis. That's where the mission and vision come out, the future goals, the action plans, and the overall timeline, which for a strategic plan in North America, probably between 3 and 5 years. All right. In Japan, it's up to 50 years, but they know how to do that a little differently, and they probably do it much better. But the whole idea is that a strategic plan is visited on an annual basis, just so you remember that. And then what comes out of that a strategic plan is a business plan, and normally that's a 12-month plan. And it's based very integrated, with a 12-month budget as well. And that's really where you get the functional side of what has to get done and the functional strategies that develop that line up with the overall strategies of the strategic plan. And then, you're really in the operating piece. And then, parallel to that business plan is the marketing plan. Who are the intended customers? And now we're talking about the ideal customer. What's happening with these customers? Marketing research and how it makes a play, and we're going to talk about that. And there's a few questions around the test around marketing research. And then how do we appeal to these people? So what do we do and how we manage that communication and offering, coming from the overall value proposition for each one of those offerings. Okay, so take a look at the components of the marketing plan. It has the functional strategy. How are we going to market to these people? Who are our target markets going to be? And that's mainly, related to the ideal customer. What's our product mix? And oh, by the way, remember Neil Borden is one of the theorists. He coined the term marketing mix. And really what marketing mix is, that's the components of the marketing strategy, functional strategy going forward, getting led, by the strategic and business plans, and then the messaging strategy. So here, I'm not going to go through this very much, but here's all the steps so you can see how this all kind of fits, from the actual strategic plan, doing the situation analysis. Remember, I talked about that piece, last time around, and then in through the marketing strategy, looking at, this is the marketing mix is the tactical side of the marketing strategy, and then implementation and control. And again, what gets measured gets done, remember? Okay. So you can see that we're focusing a little bit more on the pricing strategy. So that's going to be important. All right. But let's not forget about, the digital marketing wheel, because ever since then, we've moved from what they call bricks and mortar, to digital. And so now what the buzzword is called bricks and clicks. All right. So that's really what we're trying to do from a digital point of view. And if you look at the 7 crucial steps plan, developing pricing strategy is key. All right, man, because that's where you make your profit, and that's how you will retain your customers. So you have to be really sharp about how you do that, and how you do that in terms of sequence. Because if you change the pricing strategy abruptly, chances are you'll lose customers, and when you lose customers, normally they don't come back. All right. Okay, so setting the price for your product. All these things come into play, from customer segmentation. That's why we're talking about the ideal customer, the value proposition, what are you offering, and in terms of that product or service, the cost analysis to make sure that, if, you can be in the right price points to be able to have competitive advantage, and doing that through the market analysis. And that's where you exercise your pricing strategies and the psychology of the pricing and how you're going to, resonate with that ideal customer and others. And then the competitive analysis of how crazy or competitive is the market. And again, I'll remind you about, blue ocean strategy, where you try to look for uncontested markets, because that way you can start right from scratch and command the market, from a foothold. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then pricing experiments, and where you can really get a sense of, maybe in the bundling side of different offerings or whatever. So that's where that brings you. And I guess you can see that there's a gold key here. So it's something to really understand. So again, a little bit of review now. The ideal client, so the list of people who fit your target description, they're the prospects, the list of people who have responded to an offer. They're existing clients, they're repeat clients, and they're champions. They're going to be advocates, and they will be advocating on your behalf. They will be bringing more customers to your offering. Okay, so here's some questions to ask to create that ideal client. So let's talk about Tim Hortons. So who are their most profitable clients? And I want you to think about that. And that would give you a sense of where that one ideal client that you want to characterize would come from. Which clients recommend you to others? What are the common characteristics of these clients? What motivates them? Create a biographical sketch. So that's what we're doing with that piece. So again, here's all the terms. We talk about the ideal customer, but we're talking about the buying persona. They're called a customer persona. They're called the customer avatar. They all have different, but it's all the same stuff. And here are the key the key elements that you have to kind of satisfy to really kind of characterize that customer persona or that ideal customer. Then just, I kind of, I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but like I said earlier, you can't fully characterize an ideal customer before you really understand the organizational's value proposition, and that's why I brought that to your awareness to see what that's all about. And really, it has to tie into that target market of your ideal customer. It's got to have those, to get into really connecting, in terms of what are the pains of that ideal customer, what are the gains, the tangible, desirable elements, and then how different, back to competitive advantage, how unique is that, right? So that's what the value proposition is all about. Again, Alexander Osterwalder, this is the canvas that he created. And like I said, you can get in. Well, here's a link where you can go to that link and actually use that for your marketing courses, say, and you probably talked about that already. So again, just a review of, this is what we did for Amy Artsy. We know with the staff from the Art Barn to be able to create that, and then really what you're trying to do is like, in terms of channels, is that where are you going to find them? The modality. And are we going to find them, on Facebook? Or are we going to find them on, Snapchat or whatever? What kind of demographics? What kind of psychographics? And now, if you're looking B2B, like business to business, what kind of business demographics? For your business customers, what kind of relationships and how are they motivated? So this is really key. So that, again, these are just plain examples, again, that you can have a look at, for to give you a little more information. I pulled this off the internet. Here's Sally, and then how they describe Sally, and what she was all about, and here are some of her attributes, and those pieces, just for your for your example. So now we're going to kind of shift a little bit now to the marketing mix. And back in my day, we really just talked about the 4 Ps, right? And the 4 Ps were product, price, place, and promotion. And place was, well, yeah, we have a shop down on 50th Street, and that's the place. But in today's world now, we need to look at more P's. We need to look at, what's the principle of what's going on. It means your business must stand for something. That's branding. What process that focuses on the technologies to, improve your customer experience. And then performance, the measurable results. What gets measured gets done. But the whole message, and you can see all the highlighting in yellow, the bold, in the new multi-channel world, this place now is really called access. You develop an integrated cross-channel presence because you need to be where your customers are. You need to be where your ideal customer is. And that could be several places. And that's where you talk to them. That's where you entice them. That's where you inspire them. And that's where you channel and get, engage them to be able to advocate for you. Right. So that's what this is all about. So I talked about I was going to introduce you to the customer journey, and what the customer journey about. This really is the sales process right here. You make a customer aware. You catch their interest. You entice them to maybe trial your product, and you can see that especially digitally. A lot of softwares allow you a 90-day free trial, and they get you hooked, and then you'll end up putting all your information in there, and you've bought into this thing, and now you're ready to purchase. But the whole idea is that once you purchase, though, you want to retain those customers. And then as you retain them, they're so excited that now they start bragging about you. Right. And when we talk about retention, we really have to think about customer lifetime value. And what that means is you might have someone come into your premise to buy a $20 item, but you want them coming back, because if they come back for their lifetime, that $20 item can translate into $20,000 of sales over so many years. So that's why retention is so important. And then advocacy really kind of helps them to get you more customers. So really what you're looking at is multi-channel marketing, and which is called access. So now the P place really is access. And then here are all the different modalities, the vehicles to be able to access them and communicate with them. So that's what this customer journey map really is all about. Okay, so let's go back to competitive advantage, right? So you want to focus on those products, service that really validate the market before jumping in, and look at new ideas to really get to work with that ideal customer. And what you need to understand then is that competitive advantage, you need to develop that. All right. And then as you deploy it, that's when you're making the most of sales. And that sometime in the future that those sales are going to decline. And so these are three keywords that we need to understand: develop, deploy, and decline. And if you take a look at these types of strategies, come from Porter, and this first mover advantage and time-based advantage and technology advantage and strategic alliances, they're somewhat covered by Porter, but they're covered by other players in the market, and so that's why it's so important to really keep abreast of the management principle theorists that produce more principles and tools to be able to give you competitive advantage, or help you get competitive advantage. So again, I'm introducing VRIO, and I'll explain what that is. But essentially, there's two main components of that, and it's heterogeneous and mobile. And what heterogeneous means is really distinctive. Hetero means there's nothing like it. It's very different from everything. And then a mobile means people can't copy it as easy. So you can see that in order to create this competitive advantage, you have some tangible, distinctive capabilities that you can create in terms of intellectual property rights. So you have patents that maybe protect that, or exclusive licenses, and then intangible, strong brands, leadership, really key competencies, which are really could be called tacit knowledge and skills that give you competitive advantage, teamwork, all these other things. And then understanding, that there are some things that are reproducible. Your competitor can create, better technical capabilities if they see what you're doing. But here's the message on this slide, right? Is that it's just as hard to keep these competitive advantages sustainable than it is, developing them. It's just as hard. So you need to keep working. You'll develop that competitive advantage, but then you have to keep working at it to make sure that it's sustainable, right? And that's why we're going to talk about VRIO in the next few slides. And here, when I talked about, blue ocean strategy, really what blue ocean strategy is try to find a market that's no one's in it. It's uncontested. and so that you make competition irrelevant. You're first in, and you've really discovered, through the analysis of your value proposition, what pains that you can relieve and what gains you can create to attract those customers, and like no one else can, and then create and capture that demand. So if you're first in, then what you can do then is, you can lock in key suppliers and have these specific supplier relationships, or lock in your customers where you keep them so that they're so happy they're not going to go to anybody else, and go to other things. All right. So how to build sustainable competitive advantage? You got to know your competition. You got to know your target market. That's why we're talking about ideal customers. You got to offer something unique, and VRIO says heterogeneous, right? You got to do effective marketing and keep it going. You got to keep that conversation going, keep them engaged. And you do that through newsletters and customer panels and all those other things. You keep your customers happy, you get involved in your community, and you offer a better price. So these are all the things, that really gives you sustainable competitive advantage. But in my thinking, there's no such thing as sustainable competitive advantage. You got to work hard to maintain competitive advantage. So let's put it that way. Okay, so I'm finally going to talk to you about VRIO. And really what you're looking at then is you're looking at the resources, the view from the resources point of view. And you take a look at, what are some of the tangible resources? Well, if you take a look at, electric vehicles right now, the battery producers out there, they're out and trying to lock in the best lithium sources they possibly can, and run sort of exclusive agreements with lithium suppliers. That's tangible. Intangible, well, you take a look at Honda and Toyota have exquisite brands that will keep customers going, and they'll sell their electric vehicles to them only because, hey, they've been brand loyal all their lives, right? And then the resources have to be unique, all right? And the thing is, they can't be the what you're doing to create that. Nobody can take that away from you. And then what that does become then is VRIO resources, and what that will give you is competitive advantage, right? So let's go into what we're looking for here, in terms of the competitive advantage piece in that 10B participation activity. So we're going to take a look at one human capital factors. So let's say employee training. So let's just say that Tim Hortons has the best fast food training in the business. All right. Is it valuable? Absolutely. Is it rare? Not so much, but it's how it's done. All right. Is it imitable? Well, it's so complex that it's really hard to imitate. Does Tim Hortons have the organizational capability to be able to pull this off? Well, then once you answer these questions, you'll know. Okay, yeah, it'll give you sustainable competitive advantage, right? So, and in some areas you won't get overall sustainable, but in other areas, you will. So that's what that's all about. So this is what this is. VRIO, valuable, rare, imitable, and then organizational capability to do that. So when you look at your resource capabilities, is it valuable? If it's not valuable, well, then it's not a competitive advantage, right? Is it rare? Yeah, okay. If it's not rare, well, then your competitors have access. So they're going to be just as competitive as you are because it's not rare. Is it costly to make? No. Well, it'll give your competitors some time to be able to get there in terms of price. But if it's really costly to make, and then is your organization capable to capture that value? Yes. Well, then you have sustained competitive advantage. No, well, then it's a temporary competitive advantage. So you can see where that's going to take you, right? So the thing is that, here's the questions to ask, in terms of that Is it valuable, rare, and costly? Like strengths that can be used to take advantage of those opportunities. Uniqueness, tough to imitate. Is your company organized to exploit these resources, protect those resources? And then you need to constantly review those VRIO resources because things, as soon as you get some fame in terms of how well you're doing in business and it's published, you can bet your dollar that people will be coming in, or competitors will be coming in to try to learn what you're doing and how you're taking away their market share. So again, what makes your business unique? There's a whole pile of things. Leadership, brand portfolio, partnerships, teamwork, strong financial position. So there's all these things to take a piece, and then to understand, what's unique, ways to be unique, and then how to protect. Right. So coming through this resource base. So how can you have these unique? So it's to go through the VRIO, but how to protect. Be the first to market with unique products and services. First in is a big leverage point in marketing. Set up exclusive service area. Have a supplier agree to only supply your business, for a great product. Be the only approved vendor. Develop partnerships within your industry. All right. And, we saw that, in the competitive advantage video, in terms of alliances, to be able to give you a strength, through the partners that you have that no one can imitate. Okay. So again, here's the key thing. Is it valuable? Yes. Well, is it rare? Yes. Well, is it imitable? Yes. And then are you organized to be able to pull that off? Yes. Well, then you have sustained competitive advantage. So every time there's a no, you're giving, your competitors a venue to keep up to you, and then you do not have sustainable competitive advantage. Okay. All right, that's enough about that piece. But this is what this is what you ultimately have to fill out, in that template that I asked you to do with the the one with the three areas that you're given as examples. These three pieces. So you're filling this piece out, and then let's just talk about product design. And again, towards creating competitive advantage. And you can see the yellow arrow here. The very first step is defining that product vision. That's the very first step. And then once you get a sense of what that's all about, then you do some really good product research. You do some user analysis to really get a sense of, are people going to know how to use that product? How are they going to be able to use it effectively? How can you improve those means? Do you need to train them to use it? When these cash machines at banks came out, for running the cash machine, people didn't know how to run them. So they had a lot of work to do to be able to educate people on how to draw cash from a machine, right? So those kind of things. And it starts with, an idea, all right? And then you design that idea. And as you get into, the idea is the creation part, and the design and the testing and the post-launch, that's all the innovative part to make this idea work, okay? And I want to take you back to triple bottom line. And what you need to look at is, in our day and age, we need to create sustainable design. And what that means then is that, at the end of the product life, there's the 7 R's or whatever in terms of repurposing and recycling and all those pieces. And really what you need to achieve is a circular economy mindset. So that's what to go into, going into designing an offering is with a circular economy mindset. So what you do then is that, you look at products made and, how long they're going to be used for, and then how you can repair and repurpose them. How you can recycle them? How can you recover and reuse key materials? And if you take a look in our age, rare earths are really the makings of the new, electronic vehicle and other areas of technology they need rare earths. So that, on circuit boards, if you can recover rare earths, well, then, you can save a lot of money and look at durable redesign. so that you can make, your products, much more robust going into the next cycle of your offerings. And then you need to support this by, good marketing research. So what's the purpose of research? Provide insights into customer needs and wants, and let's say, pains and gains, and determine the appropriate marketing mix. So, we talked about the 8Ps, so how are you going to do that? And then understand the external environment that can impact the target market, right? So that takes you all the way back to strategic planning and looking at the external environment and looking at the internal environment to make sure that you have organizational capacity and capability to do what you need to do, in the long range planning aspect of it. So again, we talked about problem definition in this assignment number 3, and then the problem definition would really give you the best context for what kind of research design that you're going to create. And you should understand that sometimes you can go out and find a lot of information, that's been published by governments, by industry associations, by technical associations, consulting associations, on Google. That's all secondary data. And then you need to shore that up with some key, pure research data, which we call primary data from, the intended customer base of the market that you're going to tap into, right? And sometimes some of the information is just qualitative. It might be anecdotal, but quantitative, where they're giving you some key information, where then you do the data analysis and then create conclusions and present. And one of the better ways to set up your sense of what to research for is the focus group, and where you set up questions, and then when you find out what those answers are, you test them and validate what your findings are through quantitative research, right? So you can't just leave the focus group thinking that you've got it figured out to be able to design a product. All right, so here's a lot of highlighting. So understand, in terms of research objectives, for exploratory research design, that's where you get the background information. You define the terms to clarify the problems. You set up some hypotheses that you'll test in the research. And what you've done is you've found out a lot from the secondary data analysis to be able to try, to look at the information that's not there, the holes in the information through a focus group, and then from the focus group, you can do observational research and then validate also your findings in survey research, right? So this is one of the key ones to know. And then other research design is descriptive, marketing, who, what, when, where, and how, and then causal, if you did something, how can you, do some experiments? And I talked about Procter & Gamble, who use Peterborough in Ontario as their test market, and they will test their new products and see what the take rate is, and talk to their, the people that buy those products and find out more about their use and all those things. Okay, so just know the difference between primary and secondary research. Here's some key things on the primary research. Here's where you can access information on secondary research. And on the primary research, just a sideline comment is that sometimes it's really expensive. But what you can do is you can find out consultants that have what they call omnibus surveys. And what they will do is they will charge you a certain amount of fee to maybe run 4 questions. And then you don't have to do an overall survey piece. They take care of it. So it's many organizations that tap into that one survey and pay their small share, and they don't have to pay these large sums, say, especially if they're doing international, customer research. Okay. And again, I made an intonation or a statement around, customer lifetime value. And that's something you really need to understand. All right. Um, and you can see that, here's a marketing offer. You start with a free newsletter. You could probably bring in your prospects because they'll have a self-study course that, they may be interested in. But then they will turn into clients. And then if you turn them into premium clients, you're really gone up this ladder of customer lifetime value, where you not only at the end, you gained a lot of revenue, but you've gained a lot of great customers that say a lot about you. That'll bring you more customers because now they're champions, they're advocates of your organization. I mentioned this little chart, and when we go back into product design or service design thinking, you really need to have a good understanding of what that customer base is looking for. And then you define, and that's the problem statement piece. And that's why I've been so kind of adamant to really get you to understand how to create a problem statement and be it, very rigorous and really give you the capabilities to get the right context of answer. And then from there, you brainstorm and you create that idea. All right. And that's where the creativity piece really comes in. And then from there, you have the engineers and you have the production people that start, developing a prototype and then test it out to make sure that, hey, it's what the market wants and it's what the market will support. Okay. So again, here's that customer lifetime value piece. And here's just an example, of just how that ties into just customer lifetime value. Because, you as a college student, the bank right here is saying, hey, let's get them on a credit card. All right. And then, oh, they're graduating. Well, let's see if we can sell them a car. Oh, now they started a family. Let's see if we can help them, um, buy a home, right? So they're looking at your lifetime value, and they're looking at, their customer lifetime value, all through this. Okay, and then we get into the product cycle, and we talked about competitive advantage, and we talked about, when, from the other piece, where that fits in terms of, the competitive advantage life cycle: develop, deploy, decline. You know that your competitive advantage is going to wane, down the timeline because other competitors or new entrants are coming in or whatever. And this is where, strategy meets product life cycle. We talked about the Boston Consulting Group piece, and you need to understand, do you have a cash cow? And then how are you going to manage that? Yeah, because at some point in time, your cash cow sales are going to start dropping. Your market share is going to start dropping. Your profits are going to start dropping. And then you need to understand, well, do I need to, get rid of that? Do I need to liquidate, or do I need to just sell the business and get out of it? All right. So those are the kind of things that you need to think about. So understand what cash cows are all about. So in business strategy, milking a cash cow, that refers to maximizing profits from a product or service with a high market share in a mature, low growth market while minimizing further investment, right? That's what you're going to do. And, we're getting on the end of the maturity curve, for a particular product or offering. All right, knowing that. And then just a small introduction to disruptive technologies. And guess what? Disruptive technologies are going to happen on a weekly basis, as far as I'm concerned, because of the impact on artificial intelligence. I mean, this is everyday life for you guys, leaving this program. And what happens is it helps to create a new market, an entirely new industry. And it'll eventually disrupt the existing market. Look where the typewriter started, and look where you are now in terms of a smartphone. So it displaces early technology, improves a product or service in a way that market doesn't expect, right? So get ready. All right. So we can understand the future if we understand what people are doing when it's hard, which means that from a product development point of view, from a, sustainable competitive advantage point of view, you need to keep watching your clients, and you need to keep watching your competition and technology to make sure that you maintain the relevance to manage your competitive advantage on a sustainable basis. Okay, so look at, here's an example of, how, uh, you know, uh, when we started with CDs, how the Apple actually put the, the entertainment business on its ear, for recordings, because, they replaced that where, you could download an MP3 file for 99 cents, whereas previously you were paying $30 for a CD album. And now that's even moved even further now to streaming, where, if you could put up with the advertisements, you can stream for free or register at a very small amount to be able to get the music that you need. This is a key representation of disruptive technology, happening as we live. And here's a few other things, and I just wanted to talk to you mainly about, the Internet of Things. And what is it? It's basically, there's sensors out there that now people can measure things much more economically. So you could get into, like, in the Internet of Things, you can do precision agriculture, meaning you can test the pH of the soil, you could measure the climate, and it'll show you exactly, how to plant and have the best of yields. And that's all through the development of Internet of Things. And those applications are doubling every year in North America, if you can believe that. And that's due to, where the technology's going, and how AI can handle big data. So get ready for that. Okay, this is just to let you know, like when I was doing my master's, the author of, Robert Cooper came as a visiting lecturer and took us through, this whole piece of how to launch a product. This is a great book if you're interested, but you can see that, it's all those pieces that we talked about: defining the product vision, doing the research, doing the user analysis. He had some great anecdotal information on how, in some cases where he worked certain products, how he worked with the user, how to set that up, create that offering, and then design it and test it, and using a series of gates, because sometimes the investment is really big, and you've got to know when to fold. Sometimes if you're not getting what you need, you may decide at a particular gate to just shut down the product because it's not going to give you what you expect to get, right? Or the offer, or the service offering. Okay, so product strategy. We talked about the product mix. It's really like the tactical side of the firm's product strategy. It's a collection of the firm's product lines, and look at, there's things that you need to look at in terms of price considerations: the cost of the product, the type of elasticity of demand, that could come into play. Competitive advantage in terms of how to do that pricing, and then markup pricing. And you can see that this is highlighted as well. So it's important in this piece of, the different pricing methods. So pricing is really, that's synonymous with profitability. You price wrong, you don't make any money, right? So markup pricing is basically, you have a cost, and some, like, consultants do this, or like a big key infrastructure builders will say, yeah, it'll cost us so much, and that'll be and then we're going to charge you 30% of the cost as a markup, and that's how we make our profit, right? And so that you can see where the selling price is going to be. Okay, and maintaining profitability, you should know something about loss leaders. So lower than normal price to encourage purchase of other pricing, other items. So let's take grocery stores. What they'll say is, all right, what it is that we're going to offer, a key premium loaf of bread for 25 cents. And that loaf of bread probably cost them, say, $2 to purchase, the cost. So they're losing money on it. But they know that if they offer that loaf of bread for 25 cents, they're going to get 30% more customers in the door over the next week. All right. And that well makes up their profitability because of the volume of sales that they're going to make. So that's a key one. Penetrating prices, that's, it's lower than normal prices. You want to get into a market. So if you take a look at what Temu is doing right now to try to get into Amazon's market, their prices are amazing right now. They were even more amazing a year ago. And as they're moving into that market and picking up more market share, you're going to see their prices come up. So that's their penetration, pricing strategy. Price skimming, sometimes, it's hard to put in a price and then bring the price up in the market, but it's easier to bring the product in at a higher price and then drop it, so that's what price skimming is all about. You have high prices for a limited time, and because sometimes it's a new product, so people, the early adopters will be out there buying it because it's new, and then you pay for some of your development costs by doing that. Follow the leader, that's basically, watching what's out there and matching your prices. Variable pricing, different prices to different customers, and that's price discrimination, so that that like kids dine for free. That's discriminatory pricing, and families or other people don't disagree with that because it's for families. And then price lining, and that's the price range for a product of low quality to high quality, number of features. So this is the price lining is the strategy of good, better, best, right? So what happens is if they offer three different prices, and people will gravitate towards sort of the medium value, and they'll in the long run, increase their profitability over a time. So loss leader pricing. Here's a little more about it. Here's an example. Well, you buy Gillette, you basically get the handle for free, but they know you're going to be coming back to buy those high price razors. So, that's a loss leader example. I talked about price skimming. Just a little bit about promotion. There's different ways, especially, when I talked about the customer journey, you need to find them where they are. You need to be with them where they are. You need to communicate them where they are. But billboards is, it's a little bit of a risky business because let's just think about that. It's a lot of money to design and produce these billboards, but it's really hard, because they'll attract attention on a highway, but there may not be much else to look at, and people don't remember stuff, so it's not that great of a deal. If you look at, we talked about or at least in the topic 10, slide deck in Blackboard, talks about the marketing hourglass. All right, and you can see, where this really is, what I showed you in the customer journey is the purchase process from awareness to advocacy. All right, and how this fits. So I just wanted to show you that this hourglass that's in there is really represented by this customer journey itself. Okay, so greatest opportunity for growth is selling more products to existing customers. Just remember that. So think of it. All right, you already have these customers. It probably costs you a lot of money to find those customers to start with. So if you can look at selling more to them, then you already have that market to start with, instead of going right from scratch and finding new customers, for your newer products. So this is key to understand that piece. Now I talked about customer relationship management, and it's a business strategy designed to optimize, profitability, revenue, customer satisfaction, by focusing on specific customer groups. but also I'll just give you an example. All right. So, one of the times I went to the dentist, they're asking me about, oh, how's it going? I start talking about my children. The next time I come back, they're asking me about a particular daughter and how's she doing? Well, how is that done? They're gathering information on a customer relationship management. And what are they doing? They're creating intimacy with the customer, on whoever that does. And if you take a look at, the components of the ideal customer in terms of what motivates me as a customer and what relationships that I value and my core values, the more that you can bring that information to the full to be able to, to work through the customer through the purchasing process, the more effective that you're going to be, right? And it all comes down to what? It comes down to AI, right? So just remember that. Just a couple more slides. Just remember that the key pieces around CRM is one is to acquire, because the CRMs or customer relationship management are fed by other kinds, other systems in the organization to know how to, look at where your customers can be, and then so you acquire them, you convert them to visiting customers, and then you retain them. They're buying from you, and then you retain them. So acquisition, conversion, retention, those are key pieces. And then here's the CRM process again to show you, where these key areas are. You're building awareness, acquiring leads, you're nurturing leads, you're converting to sales, you're converting, then you retain those customers, and you upsell and cross-sell, and then you're building loyalty. And I keep on saying, customer satisfaction, that's just, you need to do that to stay in business. Customer loyalty, you can take that to the bank, because that gives you maximum, customer lifetime value. All right, different types of CRMs. There's operational, analytical, collaborative. That's something you should know. You can see that it's highlighted. We talked about AI, and basically that's the end of the presentation tonight. So I'm just going to stop the recording. Where are we here?